It goes to the speaker. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's it. What do we have?
Well,
What you said.
good evening, everyone. Today, June 16, 2021, Boca Raton Airport Authority meeting. I ask everyone to silence their cell phones, please. And let me just stand up a second. We'll go down the list of the visitors we have real quick. Tell us who you are.
I'm Mike Petrosky. I'm the dean at the Lincoln University College of Aeronautics.
Thank you. Yeah,
Casey Rice, Lincoln University.
thank you.
He's our chief pilot.
Joe Darian, Atlantic Aviation, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Jose Cabrera, City Flight Board.
Resident.
Bill Murphy, resident.
Tom Blair, business person.
All right, welcome, everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's kick off the meeting. Christine, you want to take a roll call, please?
Mr. Pollard,
Here.
Mr. Nobles,
Here.
Mr. Now,
Here.
Ms. Bud. Here. Mr. Vogel,
Here.
Mr. Colvin,
Here.
Mr. Tucker.
Here. All right, thank you. I'd like to get approval of the minutes from the, we have two minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve tonight. First one, the minutes from the regular meeting of May 19, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Second one is consider the approval of the minutes for the airport master plan workshop, which we had here on May 26th. Do I have a motion?
So
Second? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, carry, both carry. Claire, are there any agenda changes?
No, sir.
Okay, now we get to the annual fund here, the election of officers. I guess we'll have an overview of the bylaws regarding the election of officers by Janice. Welcome, Janice. Nice to see you
Nice
again.
to see everybody again. I don't know if you all recognize her from last time. I'm coming for Amy today, Janice Rustin, Louis Walker. Just wanted a little brief summary of the bylaws. Every year, the board has to select a chair, a vice chair, and a treasurer/secretary. And they serve for 1-year terms. Officials cannot serve more than 2 consecutive terms in that seat, but that prevents them from sitting in a different seat. And the process for elections is described in the bylaws itself, so I figured we just default to Robert's Rules of Order. We'll have the chair, the current chair right now, he'll step down, he'll pass the gavel to the vice chair, who will open the floor for nominations. We'll set up the nominations, you can nominate yourself, nominations don't have to be seconded. When the floor is closed for nominations, they'll take, the vice chair will call for a vote. If there's more than one person nominated, be a voice vote, a roll call vote, sorry, for the person that you voted for. Otherwise, it'll just be a standard voice vote. All right, so.
So I'm now passing the gavel,
Oh,
the invisible gavel.
So I will entertain motions for the chair position.
Chairman, I would like to nominate Randy Nobles.
So I would like to thank you, Mr. Coleman. I am going to respectfully decline, and let me give my reason why. As many of you know, I am in the process of retiring. I've told this to Clara that, and I've actually had conversations with several of you tonight about this. I am totally committed to the Airport Authority Board, but just, Patty and I, my wife, have a lot of travel and trips planned, and until I it would be a bad time for me to be stepping into this role until I kind of find my mojo of what my schedule is going to be like. So I'm honored to be considered. I'm dedicated to continue to serve on the board, but I just personally don't feel like this would be the best time for me to be the chairman, just to be honest to the organization. So I, in turn, though, would like to nominate Jim Now.
And I second that.
Any other nominations?
I just have a question.
Sure.
May I ask a question about Mr. Nobles? Would you be open to a less position on the board?
Yes.
Thank you.
there are no more nominations, we'll close the floor for nominations and vice chair call for the vote.
Could we have a vote for Jim Now as our next chairman?
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
You got it. Congratulations.
Let's go.
Thank you, Chairman.
You can-
Good luck to you.
You got it.
We're around.
Yes. First, I'd like to thank him for his leadership and all his service to the board. It's been great working with you, and I look forward to trying to carry on.
Let me say one thing. My last officials. I want to thank, for the last 2 years, it all started when Gene Paul threw me into this barrel. It's been 2 excellent years. I want to thank the staff that we have on Clara and her staff. They're absolutely phenomenal. And I want to thank the rest of the board for all the support that you provided. So thank you very much, and let's move forward.
And Mr. Chair, if we go off agenda for a moment, since it seems like the appropriate time to
Yes.
present Mr. Pollock with a recognition and a thank you on behalf of the board.
Money?
$100.
You have to tell the state legislature. Thank you for.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the vice chair nomination. So the floor is open for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Gene Fulton.
Okay, we have a nomination. Do we have a second?
The seconds are required for nomination.
Okay.
Just
all right.
vote, yeah.
Do we have any other nominations?
I would like to nominate,
Oh, me?
Okay.
All right, so we don't need seconds on either one of those, okay, so we have 2, any other nominations? All right, so,
This time you'll take a voice vote and a
Yes.
roll call vote, and the person, when you're asked to respond, you'll respond who you're selecting.
did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have actually served as chair before, and I think as vice chair and secretary treasurer. I don't think Bob has had the opportunity, so I would nominate Bob actually for vice chair and remove myself as a nominee for vice chair.
I will remove myself, vice chair.
All right, we have a
All
slate.
Congratulations, Bob.
It takes us a while, but we get there.
And with that, Mr. Chair, I think you need to vote, but.
yeah, for the record, all in favor of having Bob as our vice chair?
Yeah.
Aye. Bob Tucker.
And also on behalf of the staff and the entire team and the board, I'd like to thank Randy for your service and all your support. And I do have to say, it feels great to hug again, so thank you.
It is.
All right, and the next item is the vote for secretary treasurer, so the floor is up for any nominations for secretary treasurer.
I would like to nominate him.
Rita Noble, secretary treasurer. Any other nominations? All right, hearing none, no other nominations, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Randy.
I just wanted another plaque.
For your new retirement. Thank you, Jim. Thank you again on behalf of the entire team for all your support. The secretary treasurer has, I think, a lot of work, so we appreciate all of that. Thank you.
Okay, next item of business is public request. If any member of the public wishes to provide comment on any item, the time to do so is now. Please complete a public comment card identifying the item upon which you wish to be heard and provide it to Ms. Lambert. The public comment cards are located in the back of the room. Each member of the public wishing to comment will be provided with 5 minutes to do so. The chair will have the right to move the public comment opportunity on a specific agenda item to the point in the agenda where that item is to be considered, or extend the allotted time for speaker. So, Ms. Landers, do we have any comment cards?
Not at this time.
Consent agenda. Ms. Brown, are there any items on the consent agenda?
No, sir, but if I may, ask, for a concession to introduce our two scholarship recipients who are here
Yes.
this evening. They unfortunately were, just a few minutes delayed and arrived after the meeting started, so if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce the two.
If you would, please, that's great.
So, if you guys could, stand up and I'll do a quick introduction. As you know, the scholarship, that the, funds every year is a huge part of what we do, it's part of our core mission. And so we're always so thrilled when we have the opportunity to meet the scholars. I had a chance to meet all three scholars last week. Two of the scholars are here, and I would like to turn it over to Marcus to introduce himself, a little bit about your career goals and what you hope to gain from the scholarship and what the scholarship means for you.
Okay, but can we put them on mic?
If you, please, good idea.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hi guys, so my name is Marcus, as you guys heard, and I'm planning on majoring in aerospace engineering at the University of Central Florida. And I've always wanted to become an aerospace engineer, and since I was young, playing with rockets and planes and all that stuff is just really fascinating to me. So that's what I want to do for my career. And winning this scholarship for me took a big weight off my shoulders because my mom is still paying student loans, and she always told me she didn't want me to pay student loans. This scholarship gave me like a full ride, pretty much. So it took a massive weight off my shoulders, and I'm very thankful to get this scholarship. I'm very thankful for you, and I'm very thankful for everyone here for considering me, because I didn't really think I was gonna get it. Because I apply to stuff all the time and I never got anything. I was surprised when I got it. When I saw how much, I was like, no way. My mom was like, let me see that shit. She was proud of me. My dad was proud. My brothers are proud, and it just means a lot to me. So thank you very much.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, I'm Ariel Valiente. I will also be majoring in aerospace engineering at the University of Central Florida. I guess one of my dream goals or dream aspirations is to work for NASA, and I think my ultimate goal is to work on the ISS, the International Space Station. So that's my big goal, but I'm really honored to have received the scholarship because, like Marcus, it's just a weight off my shoulders. My mom's a stay-at-home mom, so it's just my dad working at home. And I'm really thankful because now I get to go to the school that I wanted in Orlando. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
If it's okay, Mr. Chair, we'll take a very quick picture, so that if they need to step out, they can step out. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. You're welcome to stay for the meeting.
Before you all leave, if on behalf of the board, we are as proud of you as you are of yourself, and your parents are, and we look forward to you coming back to us. If it's not next year, certainly sometime around graduation. We do keep track of how all our students are doing, and again, we're so proud of you, and we're so delighted to be able to offer that money to folks who are as deserving as the two of you. So congratulations.
A blanket, oh boy. Yes, an umbrella.
So you're saying-
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the blanket may come in handy, right, Christine? Do you have a question?
I have a question for you. Since they're of the younger generation and they're going into aeronautical engineering, I would just like to ask, have either one of you made paper airplanes before?
Yeah.
I want to make sure it was still a
Okay.
thing.
You're dating yourself, Chief.
I have no problem with that.
Gene was there at Kitty Hawk with it, like.
It was a great event.
So did the two of you know each other before?
No, we met at the scholarship.
At the event? Well, see, so now you have a support mechanism. And, good.
Well, again, congratulations, best wishes.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right, the next agenda item is federal, state, and municipal input, and, Ms. Miller, is there any federal, state, or municipal input?
No, sir.
All right, next up is a presentation of the May 2021 financial report. And just for the record, during my time as Secretary Treasurer, I did review all the detail line items on the report. Here's a summary report from Jada Stewart. So, Ms. Stewart, you will.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jada Stewart, Accounting Coordinator. I defer to Mr. Now. For any comments, thank you for already addressing your comments. In your package is the financial report through May 31st, 2021. As you can see, total operating revenues year-to-date are approximately $4.3 million. Total operating expenses year-to-date are approximately $3.7 million, and net income before depreciation is approximately $637,000. Overall revenues are 29% above budget year-to-date, primarily due to the seasonal nature of fuel flowage and custom revenues. Expenses are down approximately 14.5% to budget year-to-date, primarily due to the timing of one-time expenses in comparison with annualized budget and projects expenses incurred but not yet received. On behalf of Airport Management and the Secretary Treasurer, we respectfully present the May 2021 financial report to the Airport Authority.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for Jada Stewart? Hearing none, we're looking for a motion to approve the financial report as of May 2021. Motion?
Second.
Any other questions now? Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tenant reports and requests. There are no tenant reports and requests, my understanding. Executive Director and staff reports, the noise abatement operations summary for the month of 2021. Mr. Robert Abbott.
Yes, good evening, Robert Abbott, Operations and Finance Analyst. So during the month of May, there were 7,058 operations. That's 36% more than operations in May of 2020. Also threw up the comparison for May of 2019, just to get a little more accurate comparison, because May of 2020 was during, the operations reduced because of COVID, so that's why we're going to be comparing all 3 years here. It was down 5% over that year as well. So Jet A deliveries were up 130% over May of last year. We also had a 56% increase over May of 2019. The next one. There we go. The avgas deliveries were down in from both May of 2020 and May of 2019. Next. There were 14 different households who filed noise complaints on our noise hotline during the month. A vast majority of these calls were on arrivals to runway 5. We had some for the departures, runway 5 as well. And we also had some on overflights, some of the different airports around, especially the airports south of us. So we had some calls on those as well. Customs report, we had 169 aircraft clearings in May of 2020. It's up from 13 in May of 2020, and it's up from 121 May of 2019. So we still did see an increase over 2 years ago as well. So it looks like things are kind of rebounding a little bit for us. We also had 2 vessel clearings during the month, and we had arrivals from 17 different countries. You can see other locations there. There were also 45 after-hours clearings during the month, and 26 occurred during the times when the facilities normally close. So that concludes the operations report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to item 10B. And that's a request to approve the public transportation grant agreement for the project. So, Travis, you're gonna handle that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you, we have a offer from the FDO chief to a public transportation grant agreement to provide the design phase of the radio and telecommunications replacement project at the air traffic control tower. Majority of the items being targeted in this project were replaced last in the 2009-10
timeframe and starting to show a little bit of age and having to increase the maintenance up and wear and tear on things. So this portion will be the design of kind of targeting exactly what we're looking to replace in the near future. The state has offered up the usual 8% of the total $150,000 budget, so they will be picking up the tab on $120,000. We've already budgeted a plan for the $30,000 additional. So Airport Management recommends approval of resolution 061321, executing the PTGA for the design phase.
Motion to approve? Motion to approve. Second. Second. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving resolution 61321, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Unanimously passes. Thank you. The flight observation area shade option presentation. So this item has been before the board a few times. The board's taken an interest in the project because of the positive impact on the airport and high visibility. So we have several speakers participating via Zoom with technical details on the available material types. And I think this was requested at the last meeting. So to get started, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tucker, who is the board liaison on the project, to introduce this agenda item and the project team. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, the Airport Authority has retained landscape architect Sharon Hubbard of Hubbard Design and Associates to develop the design criteria for this project. The criteria will be included in an invitation to bid for ITB, and contractors will then bid on the project based on the design criteria. At our last meeting in May, the board directed Ms. Hubbard to get more information on technical specs of various shade structure options to include in the ITB. She researched approximately 25 companies and sent inquiries to 13 firms that either distribute or manufacture these types of materials. 6 firms responded, and they're participating this evening via Zoom with presentations on technical specs of the various options. Ms. Hubbard is also participating tonight via Zoom. But before I turn it over to the team, I would like to offer some guidelines for this discussion. The purpose of this agenda item is to get board consensus on the canopy material that best suits the needs of the airport. When making this decision, board members should consider materials based on the following categories: price per square foot, durability, weight, water and sun resistance, and warranty. Board members should avoid selecting a specific brand where the manufacturer allows only approved installers to work with the product. This may limit the number of respondents to the ITB. Once the material is selected, it will be included in the design criteria for the ITB. Once the ITB is published, the board cannot change materials. If the board's choice of material results in bids that are too costly or there are no responses, then the Airport Authority can withdraw the ITB, change the canopy material, and republish the ITB. So, Ms. Russell, if I stated the intent of the discussion tonight correctly?
You have, thank you very much.
Very good. I'm now going to turn it over to Scott to run the rest of this.
Can I have a quick question before we begin the presentation? So you said we have 4 basic categories that we need to be looking at when we evaluate these materials, not the vendors, but the materials. I don't see in the packet, although maybe it will be presented during the narrative portion, some type of grid where someone has said on a scale from 1 to 10, durability, this is rated as 1. This is so that we are better able to make that recommendation. I may hear something that Mr. Folden does not, or I may determine that, hey, I think that durability rate's 10, and Mr. Folden may go, well, gee, I think it's a 4. Either some independent analysis on those 4 things, or some type of scale where someone using a level playing field has done that. I'm just saying that would make this a lot more equitable.
So I appreciate your concerns. With all the 5 categories, these are just a suggestion of categories. This is inherently a subjective exercise. So unfortunately, I think even if we had information for it and were able to create some sort of matrix or a graph of something, we would still be down to what people subjectively want.
Well, that's
I
not
think-
true, because price is price. And if you come to complete this project as spec, X dollars, that's not subjective.
We're not at that point in the, we're not asking for pricing, this is general guidelines. So I think if you can speak to the concerns regarding the procurement versus just fact finding.
Sure, so, right now it's the design criteria phase, for selecting, materials that we want to include in the bid package. An ITB is selected by lowest, price vendor. So at that point, that's when you'll be determining, that's really when the rubber hits the road in terms of price. So even you might select a higher quality shade product that has, when people install it, price could be increased. Some contractors would have a higher price to install it, some could have a lower price to install it. So I think ultimately the price is determined by the installer, the contractor who's doing the bid. Although it's driven in part by how much the materials are, I think ultimately you'll determine the price at the end of the process, at the ITP stage.
And that's why we asked for general and ranges in the questions that were posed for the individual presenters this evening to answer. It was general and price ranges per square foot because the final design will be what determines the bid price that they bid for that.
I get that, that's why
Mhm.
price per square foot would be a good place to start.
Right, that is one of the questions we asked them, so we did, based on the questions that have been asked at the board meeting that Ms. Hauber was unable to answer because it got into kind of that more technical analysis. So, Ms. Hauber came up with a list of those questions, which included price per square foot, again, as a range for comparison purposes. And those questions were asked of each of the presenters this evening, who will be their task was to answer those questions. And for the board to kind of have a general sense of, based on those responses, which type of material would be included in the final design and then in the final.
And just my final question, I would assume then that each of the presenters that we are going to hear is aware that we are, part of our triggers are going to be price per square foot, relative durability, weight, warranty, the 4 things that I just wrote down based on what Bob said.
Yes, they were all given those questions and they were informed repeatedly that this is not a procurement process this evening, this is fact finding, and that the board's decision will be based, generally speaking, on all of these criteria and those criteria will be used to develop the final bid specifications that are included in the bid package. Because different products will have different specs. And they recognize, everyone recognizes that this will be competitively bid through that invitation to bid once the final specifications are done and the engineering drawings are complete.
So each presenter tonight is going to basically be championing not necessarily their company, although subliminally yes, but more importantly, the type of material, right? Okay, so.
No installations, from what I understand, they're not gonna discuss, they're not.
No, we asked for, again, general ranges of prices because the final design will be based on the material type that is selected. So we're really looking at material type, whether it's the PVC tensile or the fabric or the metal or the various iterations. And then the final design will be designed to that material, to accommodate that material.
And my final point is, at least some of the vendors who will be talking to us tonight, probably 2 of them, will de facto be eliminated. Unless they happen to offer multiple materials. So if we are saying, oh, okay, here's my company, I know we're not here to vote for my company, but I am here to tell you about this particular
particular type of material.
Well, some,
Option A, if we choose option B in type of material, then de facto we have not chosen.
Correct, and I think everyone understands the goal is to identify the type of material that would be included in the bid specifications, and some of the presenters, my understanding is, based on Ms. Hubbard's, research, is some of them do represent various types of materials, so they would be, so their company would be able to bid eventually, in the final bid, depending on which material they provide. So there's manufacturers, there's sales folks, and they can represent various types of materials. So I don't think that that's a concern that anyone would be eliminated per se. I don't think so.
Okay, we'll have to see how it's. That's correct.
I have a much simpler question to ask before we get going, is what we're seeing the same as what's in the package?
Yes, because this was not provided to you ahead of time, we thought we would print it out for you. It's a lot of paper, but that way if there are notes that anyone would usually take.
Okay, any other questions to start? Okay, with that, Scott, you start off.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tucker. First up, we have Mary Langley. Ms. Langley is with Rep Services. Rep Services is a company that is representing Polygon, and they are a manufacturer of metal structures.
Hello, this is Mary Langley. I'm the representative for Polygon with Rep Services.
Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. So I don't know what you have in front of you. I'm doing this for myself, I can't see anything.
We have the presentation, Mary, that you provided to Sharon. So we do have that both in a handout and on the screen.
Okay, so I am gonna follow that. So the first page, all that you're seeing is a picture of the design that we worked on for your specific project that I worked on with Sharon. It is showing the white roof, which I think is one thing that was of importance to you. Moving on to the next screen, this is just a few details about Polygon. They've been in business for over 50 years. They do design, engineering, and fabrication all under one roof. We provide sign and field structural drawings. We'll design the structures to meet wherever they're being installed. I believe the code in your area right now is about 170 miles per hour, but whatever that is, we're going to meet that code so we can get a permit for it. We do foundation design, and we use factory certified installers. So we design, supply, and install all under one roof. I'm going to move on to the next page, and as I go through this, I might not give you all the details that you're hoping for, but as I give more details as we continue to move forward. So the structures are made of tubular steel columns. There's no exposed fasteners at connections. We use a poly 5000 powder coating on the frame. We price this with a multi-rib metal roof. There's no need to take down the structure in the event of a storm. It can withstand storm. And it's designed to eliminate any type of burn casting, which is very important. Okay, so talking about, moving on to the next screen, which is going to give you some details about the powder coating. The steps that are included is we use an 8-directional shot blasting of the steel to get it to a near white condition. We wash an iron phosphate treatment. We use a wash and iron phosphate treatment. We use a special epoxy primer powder coat base and a super durable TGIC powder coat. Goes through baking and curing and then to inspection and packaging. That gives you some details about the powder coating, and the next screen is going to take you to a multi-rib metal roof. And some details on that is the 24 gauge galvalume steel sheet, comes with a Kynar color paint finish. It's a multi-rib metal roofing is what we propose for this project. It is supplied and pre-cut. All the hardware and eaves and fascia and caps and all that, they're made to be in colors to match the, so everything matches the exposed fasteners and the gasket. all the trim matches. We have again, you have 30 color choices to pick from for the roofing. I know you can't, moving on to the next page, and I know you can't see the warranty and maintenance, very well, but I could send you a full copy of that. If that's something that you, or I can email you a copy so you could read that better if you can't see it very well. It is a 10-year, prorated limited warranty. Moving on to the next page, price increases. Of course, everybody's dealing with them everywhere. We have had a cost increase of about 50% since the last estimate we gave Sharon. I think you asked about square footage pricing, and that's not something that we can really do because we have so many options. Like you guys asked about E-pipe change. Well, that would change the price on it because we use less metal. So we typically price as needed and not per square foot. Sorry for the background noise. Okay, moving on. Delivery timeframe, I've gone to the next page. I currently have a 16-week lead time. Allow about 2 weeks for delivery and 2 weeks for installation. Now, so the next couple pages are drawings of the design that we did, and I know one of your questions was if the 12-foot E-pipe could be lowered so you could get a little more shade out of that. And yes, you could lower the 12-foot side. However, you could not lower the 8-foot side because that has to be there to be standard. Does anyone have any questions?
You mentioned a 50% price increase in the last, six months or so. What's driving the price increase over such a short amount of time?
It's shortages, the cost of metal, and we absorbed it for a long time, but, as you have to start buying new product, it's due to shortages, just like everyone else is dealing with. It's metal shortages and it's from the whole COVID.
Yeah, and I see that you have
manufacturing.
Yeah, I see you have a 407 area code. So that means you're a Central Florida supplier?
We are located in Central Florida. The factory is located in Holland, Michigan. But all of our staff, all of our installers are in Florida. We only work in Florida. We're just the representative in the state of Florida for the product.
I have a question, please. With regard to the price, so you said we're looking at a 50% price increase today, based over and above what you had quoted previously to our intermediary. So my question is, at what point is that price frozen? So once we go through this process, it could take, will take weeks. Do you then come back and say, in these intervening weeks, we're going up another X%?
So, if you came back today and said, okay, we want this design and we want to file a proposal on it. And so if I put that in front of you, I would give you the current pricing. I'd probably have a 60 days that those prices were good for, that I'd be able to hold it for. And so during those 60 days, you would need to get a contract to us so that we can order the materials, so then it can secure your pricing.
So if we completed our process within 60 days and told you this, you're the one.
Well, that's correct. Yeah.
Because we can't tell you today. We have our own guidelines that we.
No, what? And I'm sure you want to make some changes or something to it. It would be 60 days after our level. So I'm telling you now, it's a minimum of 50% increase on it. We have not given anyone the numbers for that. That's an estimate. So, if you'd like what we proposed and you wanted me to do a new proposal today, then I would put 60 days on there. So you would be new pricing as of today. And then that would be held for 60 days, and we have to have a contract within that timeframe.
And our process, if I may, Mr. Chair, is that we would, again, select a material type, direct Ms. Hauber and the rest of the design to the engineering team to finalize a design that, and an invitation to bid package that would then be released. And in that package, there would be contractual obligations that the winning bidder would have to meet, which would include holding prices for a specific, industry standard amount of time. And we just awarded a contract last month, as you recall, when we discussed the issue for operational purposes. So that would be the process that we would undergo. At the time of bid opening, it would be based on meeting the technical specifications, being the responsive and responsible bidder, and also being the low bidder. So that is when that requirement for holding prices for our procurement process would be effective.
And one more question, if I may, on the powder coating, what is the average lifespan of the powder coated process that you just described? I know like some it's a 10-year warranty, but how about the powder coating piece of it? How long does the powder
So the
coating
powder last? Okay. So if it's maintained, it could last 20 years plus. If you put it in there and you never touch it, and you never maintain it, never look at it, you're probably still gonna get 20 years plus, but it's not gonna look as good.
What does maintenance look like on powder coating? I have it on something.
So- Yeah, well, so, it's paint. Of course, it's a powder coating. But, so when you first got it, I would periodically look at it, and, you might wanna start looking at it once a month. And, you have some maintenance guys that are, doing other things, that they made that part of their schedule. But then as they went along, they probably realized they maybe only need to look at it every 6 months. And then as it gets older and they're looking at it and they start to see nicks and gouges and different things where people hit it with their purses or whatever, if they wipe it down and use the touch-up paint on it immediately as those scratches occur, it'll look like brand new for 20 years.
Okay, so it's just a matter of touching up.
Yep, and wiping down is a huge thing, because if somebody gets barbecue sauce on it or, different things like that, and starts eating paint.
Yes, our current chair is playing barbecue already.
Anything that's out in the public like that, you never go with it.
Okay.
So if it's clean on a regular basis, you're gonna get a really long lifetime out of it.
Great, thanks a lot.
Okay, we have time for maybe a couple more questions. Gene, you have a question?
Yeah, I just, you have a 10-year prorated warranty, is that correct? Does that cover the whole structure?
Let me make sure. They're prorated. That covers the powder coating. And that covers the roof as well. So yeah, that covers the complete structure.
And what type of fasteners, I see you use pop rivets, but other than that, what type of fasteners do you use with the metal?
It's mostly bolted together.
Are you using steel bolts, stainless steel bolts, 316, 360? Can you tell me that?
They would be steel bolts, and they would all be concealed. You wouldn't see any of them. Well, and there is some, actually, there is some that you would see.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask one last question.
Sure.
Mary, this is Clara Bennett, the Executive Director. Just a quick question. Is your product able to be installed by a third party? Or are you the only installer? Sorry.
Yeah, it can be installed by others, we just provide a certified install.
Oh, great, thank you so much.
It doesn't have to be though.
Okay, very good, thank you, that was my question.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much for your presentation, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, thanks.
I have a question. On one of your pictures, you're showing a standing seam roof. Is that the type of material you're talking about?
Well, so what we propose for this project is a multi-rib roof. It looks very similar to a standing seam, but there is a tilt line on it. And we do offer standing seam as well, but if you use the standing seam, then we suggest that you do the TNT roof decking. It increases the cost of the building pretty substantially.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome, thank you.
Take care. Okay, Scott.
All right, next up, we have Shay Rowe. Ms. Rowe represents Advanced Recreational Concepts. They are a representative that does metal and fabric shelters.
Okay, Ms. Rowe, can you hear us?
Hello?
All right.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Rowe?
Mr.
Shay Rowe?
Hi there.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Hi there. Let me introduce myself. I'm Shay Rowe with ARC Place here in Melbourne, Florida. I understand that we are looking to do a new standing pavilion down at the Boca Raton Airport. So I was here today to actually demonstrate a company that I represent called Icon Structures. As a company, they mainly focus on standing steel structures that have both steel application roofs as well as wooden application roofs. So for our application here at the airport, I have decided that we needed to focus more on the actual steel roofs. So if you see in the leading picture here, this is more of the ideal kind of structure that we'd be looking at. In our second slide here, this is just one of our options that I wanted the airport to look at aesthetically. The filtered light arbors. You'll see in all the examples behind there on the background that all of the roof arbors are cut in individual custom shapes. I know that the airport was interested in incorporating their logo into the structure, and this is absolutely a possibility with our roof structures here. It's just something to keep in mind. However, on the next slide, we'll see a more standardized format. This is our mega roof structure. It can be curved to fit pretty much any situation and any custom format. Looking at all of our structures here, it's important to keep in mind that no matter what we decide to go with, height, width, and pitch, everything is a custom-made item from Icon. So pretty much the imagination is the only limit here. With the standardized roof panels here, obviously you get more shape value, and aesthetically, it's a little more standardized. However, it does still look good. On the next slide, we'll actually look at some of our materials for the roofs in question. The actual steel that goes into working into the ribbed roof panels is 24 gauge Galvalume with a Klein-R 500 paint finish. It's basically good to a 10-year period without any major rusting issues. And then even then, if it's consistently washed and maintained with the maintenance kit that is provided, I've seen them last anywhere between 10 to 15 years before needing a true replacement. We can probably ignore the steel trim, honestly, because with the size of the structures that we'd be looking at in the format that we'd be looking at, trim won't be entirely necessary. As far as the structures themselves, it is cold formed, welded seamless steel. It is, by all standards, the heaviest gauge that you're going to possibly get for these smaller, non-load bearing structures. It will depend
whatever design we decide to go with on the thickness and the gauge of the steel. However, even at the smallest amount, at the smallest size structures, it will have industry standards and thickness and gauge. Next slide. So these are our roof options. Oh, I know that was another question that had come up specifically with this project. Looking at the Boca Airport logo, I was thinking that a roof panel in the royal blue to navy blue region. We decided to do the structural post in the blue, a heat ring or force ring on top. But of course, that's up to you at the end of the day. Next slide. So this is actually this is the process on how the structures are made. Initially, you have the prime painting assembly point. This is standard for all steel structures, no matter what. The process of doing this helps eliminate any opportunity for rust to start creeping its way into the structure during the actual manufacturing process. And then when we move on to what's even more important, the hot dip galvanized stage, where the structure components themselves are actually dipped in a hot sink that, again, the ideal is as it's moving through the process and eventually assembled and put up will prevent rust in the long term. And the galvanizing helps against vandalism, as it provides a layer between the actual base steel and the powder coat. So even if somebody is taking, let's say a pocket knife to the structure itself, it helps with protection on that level. And then of course, at the end, for aesthetic value as well as protection value, you have your powder coating, which ultimately is going to be your number one asset of protection. I apologize. The industry standard for powder coating is anywhere from 3 to 5 millimeters on most structures of this size. With icon structures, by the time you were done, you're going to be looking at 8 millimeters standard on all flat sides and 12 millimeters in all welds. It really, really does add to the level of protection long term. Next slide, if you want. So this again, the color palette, this is for the structure itself, the powder coat that goes onto the structure. There is that nice blue, orange, green sections for matching to the Boca Airport logo there. Next slide, please. Warranty, pretty straightforward, 10 years limited, really protects against any and all manufacturing error. There is an option for a 15 to 20 year full warranty, which obviously costs extra. That includes weather and vandalism damage. Anything outside of that can be readdressed after within 1 year of the warranty end. Next slide. And I know these questions came up specifically as well. Lead times on engineering is 2 to 3 weeks to actually get a solid engineered plan with drawings together. As soon as I have a PO in my hand, it's 8 to 10 weeks for manufacturing, which right now in the US is actually pretty impressive considering. And then once everything was shipped, we look at a 1 to 2 week period for installation. And of course, probably the most important factor that we're going to be looking at this kind of structure for its application at the airport is wind tolerance. We also do fabric structures at ARC placements. We do a lot of them, and they are admittedly cheaper, but you're only going to be looking at a 95 to 120 mile per hour tolerance at the absolute max with a fabric structure. And I don't care what you hear from anybody else. If it's higher than that, they are not being completely honest. Your wind tolerance with a freestanding steel structure is 150 miles per hour, base standard. And there are engineering solutions to increase that all the way up to 180 miles per hour. So that is actually all the info that I wanted to cross. But if anybody has any particular questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rowe?
I have some questions.
Okay.
Surprise. What is the relative cost of solutions that would increase the wind tolerance from 150 to 170? And just for your information, 170 is what we have gotten from a previous presenter.
To re-engineer
No, the
the
last thing you,
perspective of the 170,
yes,
170, 180
Yes.
area,
just,
you'd probably be looking at an increase from anywhere from 5 to 10,000 in price increase.
okay. On the powder coating topic, this is does the color degrade over time, even though it's powder coated? So of
You're
course,
gonna be looking at a minimum of 5 years with no fading whatsoever. Past that, you are gonna admittedly get a little bit of fading. That is just the nature of any and all materials that are gonna be out in the sun, no matter what. However, it can be readdressed at a later date. We offer a service to recoat all of our structures on site. So at any point there is the feeling that it's becoming too faded or unappealing, we can come back out and recoat the structure. Sometimes when we see significant damage done for any number of reasons that has actually broken through the powder coat, our customers have decided to just redo the whole structure as long as they're getting the small part repaired anyway.
so the 10-year warranty that you mentioned during your presentation does not include maintaining the same level of color saturation? In other words, we have to pay
No,
more,
it
and
would
that's not covered,
So that would be a separate service.
Is the average lifespan 10 years of this, is what I wrote down that you said? Again, I'm not talking about the warranty, I'm talking about the steel application itself. You said it is about 10 years. That seemed very short. And then you went on to say, oh,
No,
it could go to 15, but I guess I was thinking it would, once we make this decision, assuming it was to use steel, and who knows, maybe even you as a vendor, trying to get a sense of how many years you prorate this over, and it looks like 10, and maybe 15, but 10 is a good number.
Well, to be completely honest, especially in the state of Florida and other states that see significant weather patterns, it's very, very difficult because, I have situations, let's say in the middle of the state, Orlando, where a structure is not going to be as exposed to significant weather degradation as, say, here in Melbourne or in Boca. But yes, I would say when a maintenance kit is used, anything that we see anything other than superficial minor rusting before the 10-year mark is not normal whatsoever. That is not what we see ever. I was going to say typically, but ever, as long as maintenance is done.
So what would we expect at 10 years? Let's say it has normal wear and tear, and it is South Florida, so there's a hurricane or two coming through at some speed annually. Would we be looking to replace at 10 years using your product, using this steel product?
No.
That's what I'm
Absolutely
trying
not.
to get at.
At 10 years, you would be looking more at at 10 years, you would be looking at doing more of a spruce up job, where welds are ground and resealed and repainted, potentially a spot on the flats. It's really when you get up into the nooks and crannies that you might start seeing rust spots about half the time at the largest.
Okay. Is there anything you can share with
you
us
know-
on price? Again, we're just
On
trying to
price?
make,
I
on the
know-
price for the,
Yeah, on price, as far as a total turnkey would go, I couldn't say until we really nailed down more of a personalized design.
right, I
But
understand.
size-wise, based off of drawings that I got from Sharon, I would say that the material-wise, we'd be in the 45 to 60 range, based off of what we wanted to do customization-wise with the structure itself.
Okay, just for clarity, are you talking $45,000 to $60,000 or $40,000 to $65?
Well, 40 to 65,000.
Okay, for the product. And my final question, if we chose the laser cut option, assume that that is more than the other more solid option? Is that a true statement? And if so, how?
It is.
Approximately how much more, percentage wise?
It averages about 125% more based off of per square foot, based off of the intricacy of the design itself. Some of the laser cut options
125%
are
more of
already
the total of 45 or 40 to 65?
Or 25%.
Is that what you said,
No,
25?
no, 125% more based off of the square footage of the roof line itself. So that would be 125% on top of the 60,000, let's say, the highest. It would be based off of the roof material. So
So just
if
on the
we,
roofing.
let's say that we were just sitting at 60,000 for the regular barrel vaulted, mega ribbed roof.
Gotcha.
If we wanted to do custom cut laser panels with
Yes.
the Boca Raton Airport logo in it,
Yes.
I would probably put us closer to the $75,000 mark.
Okay, gotcha, that's only 25%.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Gene Fulton here. Do you provide any drainage on your structure?
Yes, it's built in by standard. It all drains off based off of whatever direction we need to angle it at.
Okay, and what type of fasteners, what kind of fasteners do you use to fasten the roof panels to the structure?
They're all self-tapping screws.
Okay.
Yeah, all steel rated self-tapping screws.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rowe, we appreciate it. And
Absolutely, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Ernesto de Oliveira. Mr. de Oliveira is the Director of Engineering Project Development for Apollo SunGuard, and Apollo SunGuard is a fabric solution.
welcome, and please make your presentation to the board. Thank you very much for being here.
Hi, yes, good evening. Very simple, I guess. You guys can see the structure. Basically, we've given you two options. We've given you an option which is called the X10 rendering, and that is a more of a gable roof, almost like a downwing roof style, which goes up on one side and down on the other. If you go to the next slide, you can see a better side view where it's pretty much a gable roof, completely seamless. Fabric is continuous, and it gives you more of a geometrical and angular shape. Heights are basically whatever the design implement. We can customize the elevation on the front leading edge and the trailing edge in the back. We can modify those angles to whatever site view you want to achieve. Obviously the depth of the structure as well. And the onsets, obviously most of these are all pretty much concept. Keep going to the next slide. Again, you'll see another side view. We have the structures exactly on the footprint as given on the previous submittals, but we can obviously change that to whatever size you want to do. Go to the next slide. This is a better view. You can see the front side that has a scallop look, and that is the front of the structure has a catenary fabric. The very typical fabric membranes all require some type of catenary, which reduces the amount of deflection in the fabric and gives it its tension with the cable. Backside, we've designed it in a way where it almost has very little catenary and kind of flows with the columns to keep as much shade as possible. If you look at the shadow on the bottom, you can see how the shadow is posed at noon. You can see that curved fabric, and the overhang is slightly over the column beam is slightly over the dotted leading edge line. You want to go to the next slide, the next couple of slides. That's just a front elevation view. You can see it as far as the sight line, front and the back, kind of the same. This view is actually slightly a little bit from the bottom side, just to give you an idea of the horizontal stabilizing filaments from one side to the other. Those 3 per structure. And I think the next slide, if you go, it will be the X11. Again, very same footprint, but this instead now will have a seamless beam. There will be no weld and joint. It's just one roll beam. Go to the next couple of slides. Next slide will give you a side view. You can see it's more of a gentle curve. The one thing you'll notice a little more is how the fabric canvas a little bit. Next slide, please. And a good profile view of how it look. Again, completely customized. We can customize the projection, whatever you need it to be, the front and the back. You can look at the front on the ground. You can see also the scallop look in that type of shape. If you go to the next slide, and there it is right there. You can see the scallop look on the leading edge. It's a much more cleaner structure. It has a little bit more flow to it, and it's one of our most popular structures as far as cantilever goes. And then the next slide, you go to see the front here. Basically, they're very, very similar. They just have 2 different architectural looks. Next slide. So here's just a sample. This one is a monoslope around a playground in the Orlando area, and the other one is a X10 cantilever, which is at a baseball field in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, either New Jersey or Philadelphia. So these are 2 very typical canopy systems we've done. These are, I would say, more of a negative curve with a curve inwards. The Boca Raton Airport Authority wants one that's kind of positive where it goes the other way, with a column on the inside rather than the outside. Concept is basically the same. All we're doing is shifting the column from the outside edge to the inside edge. It's very simple. So you can see the fabric is continuous, connected a slide from one beam to the other. Next slide, please. So one of the questions we had was an overview of material. First of all, does anyone have any questions about the 2 proposed shapes and designs?
So basically, the difference is largely aesthetics. Is that correct? Just the
Correct.
Look. Okay, and that was just my question before we get into the materials and everything. And I assume that there's going to be consistency in the materials from one to the other too, so it.
Correct, identical.
Okay.
Both structures made with identical materials, whether the fabric or these were just very good. Now, I don't want to veer off from any other point, but these two designs were given from a cost perspective and giving some type of variation. The reason we do this, these are very difficult structures we build. They're part of our standard product line. We build these a lot, as you can see some of the samples. If they need to be customized anyway from a design that the airport wants to convey, you're welcome to obviously let us know, and we can see what kind of shape of design we can do. That's one of the things that Apollo, as a company, we're always looking to customize and tailor our product to really what the customer needs. And obviously, customization has an additional cost to it, but eventually the result is always a unique result that only the customer, only that particular customer needs to get. So that's just talking about the two designs. We just put in a standard product. The curve and the gable roof are the most high selling candidates we have. Fabric, again, it's a standard identity polyethylene. We're one of the only two companies in the that carry the 32 fabric. Obviously, it was just mildew stitching is all UV stitching. We do have different grades of fabric, and we will get to that when we get to the design, so you can apply the correct fabric to the correct design for what you want to achieve. Frames, one of the things we do try and emphasize is we buy a US-made steel. Most of our steel on our product is allied flow coat, which is already pre-galvanized cold roll tube to the steel, which comes out of Chicago from Adcor. We use also a lot of pre-galvanized pipe steel. So one of the things is when we do we weld and we seam columns and beams together, we use a ZRC coating for the welds, for galvanized. We recommend in situations where maintenance is it's imperative maintenance, you don't want to, or you have an aquatic situation near marine environment or chlorine. Our suggestion is we build frames, all of our steel, and then what we do is we send them off to a galvanizer where the entire structure is hot dip and galvanized. And that will ensure and guarantee there will be no rust, even if the paint chips or even if they scratch the structure, at least for 20 to 25 years without issue. And that's because once you dip it, the entire structure will be inside and outside throughout the whole tube, will be marine, galvanized, marine firing. Powder coat on top of that, but we do have to take a very special way of doing this. We reheat the steel, we gas off all the impurities from the galvanization process. We have to treat it with some other chemical and then we powder coat it. We've done this for marine fire. So I know one of the questions was rust is an issue. Certainly hot dip galvanizing is really the answer to determining any of those issues. Next slide, please. So warranty, we have 15 years on our fabric, 20 years on our frames. Very simple, non-prorated. So throughout 15 years, if there's any defects from the material that is, any of the stitching or is failing, or some of the reinforcements, the actual weave, the weft, if there's anything that is failing, we will replace it. There's no question that. Next slide. Just a quick overview of the two structures. That's the extent from the side view. Again, that's just plus minus 8 feet, 4 inches high in the front. The basically the same in the back. We can tilt it in any direction we want. And that's just obviously we can submerge the base plate that is connected to the concrete. Just an overview site so you can see what a typical person, a 5'9" person with their hands up in the air would be about 7'2". So reaching 8'4" is an additional foot. Obviously, my suggestion is if the structure is 11 feet in projection, as you can see that's basically 10 feet, 11 5/8. We don't want to have the structure higher than its projections because it kind of defeats the purpose of running out in the rain with an umbrella, feet up in the air, you're definitely going to get wet. So it's the same thing with the amount of shade. The shift of the shade for the occupants underneath will certainly, move as the day changes and the sun has changed. So the suggestion is keeping it at the 8', 9" level is probably the best. If you want to go higher, the suggestion is to maybe go to a 12 or 13 foot projection. So that would be the suggestion if you want to keep the structure higher. Can you go to the next slide, please? The same thing here. This I just showed you that the back is 9'6". You can go to 9'3" in the front. You can control that curve if possible. Again, 11'4" one side, the other at 42 planes. Again, just concept, but this will give you an idea that we can manipulate the structure any way possible. Again, for sight lines or for access to the structure of the fabric. Next slide. The questions on the maintenance requirements, fabric pretty much is low maintenance. We do have a special cleaner that we use as long as we don't use a bleach. Most of the fabric that we use is definitely more mildew resistant, mold, and debris. People worry about goods. Usually they very shallow. And if it is from Spanish moss goods or tree sap or anything like that, power washing it, usually solves the issue. But in this case, I don't think there's any, overgrowth with any other vegetation around. So it's an open area. Would be pretty much low maintenance, keeping it clean. Next slide. So this is just a thing about fabric itself and metal. You can differentiate from the two and read through it. One of the things I will tell you in experience, we've actually had fabric that is a 100% sealed waterproof fabric, and we had temperatures that raised up about 15 degrees higher than our shape. We did a test at the office, and you could feel the difference within one bay to the other because of how that heat traps. Shade cloth is basically it's like biomimicry of natural trees and vegetation where the heat is able to dissipate. The reason they make shade cloth with the weave and the gap is so the heat can actually dissipate through it. Obviously rain will come through, but if you design the roof correctly and it's tight enough, the warp and the weft, you'll get about 10-15% seepage coming through. So if it does rain underneath, we'll get a light mist. But I'm assuming that if it's really raining hard, I don't think many people are going to be out there. So that's just an understanding on how air circulation works with shade cloth. So when you go with canvas or you go with metal roof, you're going to trap some of that heat on the bottom. Next slide. So with the typical, Florida building code, we build everything across the United States for 2018. IBC, everything down in Miami, West Palm Beach. We did the stadium down in West Palm Beach as well. That was a higher wind rating. They went with a different kind of fabric because of it. Removing the fabric is recommended by building code section 3105 to remove at about 75 miles an hour, which is category 1. If you do not want to remove fabric, we can certainly design the frame to withstand whatever the nominal and the V ultimate wind speed would be. So most of the time the V ultimate would be 150 miles an hour. The fabric that we would use that would assure that it wouldn't tear is the heavy fork building fabric, which would require some customization to the design, a slightly larger foundation, slightly larger columns and beams. But again, if there's a hurricane coming in at the category 2 and you cannot mobilize the crew and take it down, with the stronger fabric and the higher wind speed design, you can leave it on. Our suggestion is you can never tell with Mother Nature. You can have tornadoes, microgrids that can reach way higher than 150 miles an hour. And for a cost perspective, to remove the fabric. That's what we would suggest. But if you do want to keep it on, you can design it for the optional higher normal hurricane winds, but you have to use a much heavier fabric. And we recommend 430. Does anyone have any question on the design?
Questions, yes, Gene. Yeah, Gene Fulton here. Could you please describe to us the procedure in removal of the fabric?
I think it's on one of the next slides, but I'll touch on it now. The removal of fabric is very, very simple. Our fabric runs in a track. We have what is called a heater rail track. And inside that track is a small nylon adhesive rope, and it slides very simple. Here, so take down usually with a 2-man crew, one in the front, one in the back. As long as they can reach the corner of the structure, there is a zip on the corner where it connects to the frame. Open that up, and there's a turnbuckle they can turn. Once that turnbuckle is collapsed, opens up and loosens, that is the curve that I was talking to you about the first couple of slides showing the shape of the fabric of the structure. Well, that's the cable that forms that capillary curve, that curve from one beam to the other. Once you undo that cable, it just completely relaxes, and you can undo it from the pin. There's a nipple and a pin. You can just take it right off, and it completely collapses. Now, it only takes to open up the zip and undo a turnbuckle probably about 2 minutes to do a turnbuckle. Once it's done, as long as the 2-man crew can get to one side and they can just pull off, that handle will come right off the track. So it usually takes about 5 minutes to undo a panel and just pull it off, and it usually just slides right off. Usually, doing 2 or 3 panels is about a 20-minute process. Not very difficult. And you put them, because these are pretty small, and this 5 to 10 minutes per panel, which is really applicable for this application. So these panels are barely 12 by what I think 20 or 15 on center. So they're very manageable by one person. One person alone can do it as well. So it doesn't take very much to take them down. The difficult part is if you have something that's 12, 13 feet up in the air, you have to get a ladder. Person needs to get up on a ladder and take it down. And then the rest really most of the time is mobilization. Now obviously reinstalling it, you would have to put the correct panel back, the front and the back, and it's the reverse of taking it down. The only difference is putting it up, you have to get into the middle, move the ladders, get into the back, make sure it's balanced again, make sure that one side meets the other side, and the left side and the right side are both pulled correctly, and then you connect the turnbuckle, then you can start tightening it, tighten a little bit in the front, a little bit in the back, a little bit in the front, a little bit in the back and forth.
They forgot.
Thanks.
I think Travis is going to submit his letter of resignation.
Travis is ready.
I do have one quick question. I'm looking at, your slide that says, fabric cover versus metal cover. And on negative on the metal, you say regular inspection for pests. What kind of pests, if you have a metal cover? Are you talking about normal wasps and things that might get?
Well, yeah, birds usually gotta put nest in underneath the canopy, well, between the between the panel, you know, they have birds and.
Well, some of these have said they have anti-bird deterrents or whatever. I'm just, was there anything else other than that? Because nothing occurred to me other than combos, maybe a wasp or something. So, nothing else.
Yeah, what tend to, they won't eat fabric or fabric foods.
No, I was talking about the. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, another question. You mentioned the cable that moves through the track. You mentioned rope and you mentioned cable. What is that material?
The rope, so the cable in the front is stainless steel. It's all 316 marine grade stainless steel. And the actual rope that goes through it is a nylon. It's a hardened nylon bead that goes through, the very tiny bead that goes in the track.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Milibert. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Presentation.
All right, moving on. The next presenter was supposed to be USA Shade. Apparently they dropped off the call. I guess they put me on their time limit there. So next up, representing Span Systems, which is a PVC tensile and PTFE solution, is Andrew Kolesvari. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Andrew?
Andrew, welcome to the board meeting. And good afternoon, we appreciate it, and you can proceed with your presentation to the board. Thank you.
Okay, basically, Sharon Halber contacted us at the beginning of last week and shared with us her rendering concepts for a fabric structure for your observation area. And I did a little phone tag. I got in touch with her, and we put together a little bit of a presentation to kind of walk you through how these structures work and what our company would be if you wanted to make you a temple structure. Span Systems is 30. It's been run by me for all those years, and we are a design build suspension fabric structure company. We do structure all over the world. We build them mostly in the United States. We do a lot of
We have a bad connection. We have a bad connection. Are you on a speakerphone by any chance?
I am on my Zoom, my laptop, what I always use for these calls.
Okay, that's a little better, these last few.
We're cutting in and out a little bit.
Yeah.
You might back off a little bit. I think you're overmodulating.
Overmodulating is something I've been accused of in the past. Okay, so I don't know where I lost you, so I'll just keep going. Basically, we have never built the same thing twice. Either we are asked to come up with a concept or asked to work with a designer who has a concept that they want to turn into a structurally buildable reality. The structure she has put in front of us is a structurally buildable reality. I would change a few things that make it a little bit different. I would remove the center line support and give the fabric more curvature. The bottom line on designing fabric structures is that the curvature of the membrane is really key to the stability of the structure to withstand the load. The more load, the more curvature. The more curvature, the less stress in the fabric. The less stress in the fabric, the less stress imparted on the frame, which means you get a lightweight structure if it's designed properly. So we haven't done any design work for this project yet. We haven't had really any time. But what I have looked at is buildable. I might recommend a few small changes if the approach is the one that is chosen. That structure would be designed by Span Systems in-house. We would design it for the wind load in Palm Beach County. I think it's in 165 mile an hour range or something like that, 160, I don't remember, didn't look it up. But that would be the design wind load that we would use, and we would follow the Florida building code 100%, of course. The structure would be design build, so we would be the engineer of record, and we would stamp and seal it with a Florida PE license. The photos that I have presented here, or that I put together, show a few structures that have arches and have some somewhat cantilever canopies. Some of them are not cantilevered. They wanted something that looked like an airplane wing or wing, and we built one for them, and they like all sort of a little bit different configuration, but I don't want to go. I don't know, am I going through these? I think they're controlled by someone else, right?
We have control.
But we're with you.
Okay.
We're with something.
That sounds like a good thing for you. So the walkway canopy you see here is a cantilever with a single strut that supports the outer arm of the cantilever. The model that we're looking at, that Sharon came up with, has got is not supported with a raise from above or from below. So the member size will be slightly larger. Although we could also put a haunch in it, or we could also put a brace at the top of the column to reduce the steel size. But it's not a big structure, and so it's not going to be a huge steel element. Like I said, we haven't run it yet. My experience would say it's probably going to be an 8-inch pipe of some kind, or a square tube, or whatever we decide the aesthetics require. The structure we would build would be made from structural steel. The steel would be rolled to a curve, a radius determined later. The steel would be blasted and have 3 coats of epoxy high performance paint system. So you have a paint system that is a zinc rich primer, a second coat of high performance 2-part, and then a top coat of aliphatic urethane 2-part, which gives it a nice shiny finish. And that's a paint system that is recommended for use in steel that is submerged. That structure right there at Port Canaveral was built 31 years ago, and the fabric is that's the material, and I'm going to get into the material choices a little bit. There are 2 types of fabric. Pardon me?
I'm sorry.
Oh, there are 2 types of fabric typically used for these structures. There's an economical fabric, which is a PVC coated polyester fabric. I'm not sure why my assistant put that spec sheet there. I wanted him to put a spec sheet of the actual material from the manufacturer, but PVC coated polyester fabric has about a 15-year lifespan. The PVC tends to get brittle over time. They put a plasticizer into the PVC to turn it into a flexible material as opposed to PVC piping that you're familiar with. But the plasticizer migrates over time out of the fabric, and it becomes brittle and chalky and cracked, but it's also a bit less expensive than the other option, which is the PTFE or Teflon fiberglass, which is an incredibly inert material. It's self-cleaning, it lasts 30 years, and it is completely incombustible, while the PVC fabrics are only fire retardant. I don't know if that'll be an issue here. Every fire department, every fire official has a different opinion on a different day. So I don't know how they're going to say. But because the fabric on this structure is not a huge percentage of the structure itself is not really all that big, the fabric, the increment upwards from going from PVC to the Teflon would be recommended by me. Florida can be very brutal on the PVC. The UV rays can be tough on it. And on the PTFE, on the Teflon, it doesn't do anything. It stays nice and white, the Teflon allows it to be very much self-cleaning. So there's a lot of benefits to the Teflon, but we built lots and lots of structures using both. So we haven't really gotten into designing, so we would be able to work with the airport and the designer to try to get it to be exactly, have the coverage and the appearance that is desired. And we haven't really gotten into the modeling side of it yet. We certainly can do so and provide some member sizes and these kinds of details that take us to the next step. You know, if this project, I don't know if this project is going to be, how this project is going to be bought out or if it's done in fabric at all. But we can provide some pre-bid services. We can just give you a full-blown proposal for the structure, and then you can decide, well, if you want to go with us. There's a number of ways to proceed. In terms of maintenance, the structure is essentially maintenance free because it's a small structure. It's fabric built on a frame, so it's not an adjustable structure. It doesn't have long spans of fabric that can exhibit creep over long periods of time. Especially these fabric structures have a lot of elongation of the material when they have a high snow load, because that's a long-term load, not an issue here. Wind loads here are instantaneous loads. They tend to cause less permanent deformation, and the Teflon fiberglass is incredibly dimensionally stable. The PVC is pretty good too, but requires a little extra undercut to take the long-term creep out of the material. But the maintenance, if you go with PVC, you may choose to clean it. If you go to the Teflon, you probably will choose to clean it less, if at all. So the wind speed, I just noticed, I put in my notes earlier, is 167 miles an hour, so that's the design wind speed. There was a question about the structure being taken down. We don't build those structures. Nobody ever takes them down properly, and they never get put back on properly, and it ends up generally being a mess. We design permanent structures, so we're not. If that's the way the desires are going, we would not be your partner on that. And the structure of this, I don't like to give out too many budgetary figures early on, because things change and then everybody says, well, it should be, you gave us a price. And I said, well, it's not. That was something earlier. But I think the structure will be about $90,000 to $110,000 complete, fully installed, all the material and all the design. And that can be refined if it is the desire of the board to continue to pursue the fabric structure option. Our structure, generally a structure like this, is delivery on site about 6 months, and erection is about 3 weeks. And that is basically what I had to offer. This is not something that I usually do, so usually I make presentations in person, but we all know what happened to that. Do you have any questions? Can I answer any of any other questions for you?
Yes, thank you for your time. We do have some questions, Gene. Yes, hi, Gene Fulton here. How is the fabric attached to the frame?
For this structure, we would have what we call a cater edge of the fabric, which is a rope bead that is heat sealed inside the fabric. And that rope bead is captured by a series of aluminum powder coated clamping plates, which are screwed to bolted in through the fabric to a steel plate that has half holes in it, generally every 8 inches or 12 inches, small structure, probably 12. And that holds the fabric in place continuously all the way around the perimeter into mechanical connection.
So those penetrations into the steel, are those threaded penetrations?
Yeah, the steel, what we do is we don't penetrate the actual steel member. Let's say it's a pipe or a tube or whatever. We usually weld a continuous half-inch thick, 2-inch wide steel clamp bar to the steel, whatever the line of the fabric's gonna be, and we tap that, and we put in studs. So we're not actually penetrating the steel itself. Tends to be problematic. I know a lot of structures that have a lot of water in them that they should have done differently. And, so we don't penetrate the main structural element.
Very good, appreciate that. But it is a threaded, attachment, correct?
Yeah.
So if the fabric had to be replaced, then what would the cost of the fabric be to replace the fabric if that was to be necessary? In comparison to the overall cost of the structure, use it that.
The structure is small, but one of the problems with small structures, and that's why I like building big ones, but I like building nice looking small ones, which this is that anything. And so your weight per square foot on the steel is generally greater, especially when you're working with 167 mile an hour wind loads. That being said, generally the fabric replacement is about 20%, 25%, including labor.
Thank you.
I'm a frequent traveler to Denver International Airport. In fact, I was just there 2 weeks ago, and I think as many people who have gone in and out of there, you can see the entire terminal is covered by white fabric. Is that the same, the Teflon fiberglass, is that the same kind of material that you're talking about here?
That is exactly the same. Your grade, weight grade would not be as heavy because you don't need it, that's a big structure. We did 109,000 square feet of structure there. The structures that run along the shuttle bus pickups on both sides of the main terminal. I'm pretty familiar with that structure. Your fabric would have basically the same material. It's just a lower weight because you don't need that kind of strength.
So you're telling me you did not do the terminal itself, but you did all the walkways around it?
No, I would be retired now if I did the terminal. I did the roadway canopies for pickup for the, for like car rental shuttles and hotel shuttles, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're about 900 feet long on either side. I think that's about what they are.
Great. Any other questions?
We also did all the fabric structures at Raleigh-Durham Airport, most of the fabric structures at the Denver Airport, and a few other airports, but not the main terminal, not the Jefferson terminal. It's a beautiful structure, but we didn't do it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Colberry. I appreciate your time and your efforts to present to the board. Thank you very much. Thanks.
And my pleasure, and if you have any further information requirements or questions, Sharon has my number.
You got it. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Scott, that's it. Anybody else?
That's all we have for now, so I guess, I'll turn it to Claire.
We have 8 more presentations.
Those
Cheryl's
were the
memorizing.
short ones.
Memorize it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and board members. That concludes the presentations that were arranged and planned for this evening. And so Sharon is available, also, via Zoom, and she has joined us. So if there are any additional questions that you may have of Sharon, before you are, able to reach a consensus and give us, your direction, she's available, as are the rest of us.
Are we looking
Real quick,
to get a consensus tonight?
I'm sorry, Sharon, before you make your comments, there's a question from one of the board members. Yes, Mr. Pollak, the idea was that we would like to get direction from the board on a material type, whether it be the fabric, the metal, or the tensile fabric that you just saw, I'm sorry.
PTFE.
The PTFE, which I think would probably be preferable over the PVC, but that's another option as well. So that is the goal that we would like to achieve.
In the 90s, when I was a grinder engineer, we did the Denver Airport.
Great, so you've experienced with that.
Just
So
as a point of observation, the tensile is at least as expensive as the metal.
mhm.
Probably.
Yes.
What is?
the tinsel.
The TC at the last.
PTFE.
I mean, it
Seven
sounded,
hundred and ten.
yeah, I mean, that was the biggest number we've heard. I mean, I really liked it, but, yeah. It's just-
Sharon, you had a comment? We cut you off, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I felt bad that Craig Oliver didn't, he was up towards the end of the presentation, he had to go to his daughter's event. I called him because, he put an effort into his portion of the presentation. So at your leisure, since you have prints of it, I'd appreciate it if you take a look at it, because he spent time on it, has references to different projects and answer the questions I asked him to provide an overview of.
Fair enough, thank you very much.
That's a second fabric.
Or is that?
That was the fabric, that was USA Shade. They're a large company, they're, very reputable, large company. They imported the drawings I gave them, the AutoCAD drawings, and created a graphic. And his portion of the presentation, unfortunately, he had to walk into his daughter's event, and that's why he had to leave when he was in the waiting room.
And does that material have to be taken down in the storm?
Yes, I believe so. It's a fabric solution. It's a different solution than the previous, the design approach, and but it's similar. I was hoping for you all to hear it from at least two companies to hear the perspective on the material.
Scott, can you put up page 18 of the presentation of the USA Shade? That has the specs we were kind of looking at. Page 18 of the USA. There you go. So that does talk about taking the structure down, time to take down and reinstall. It's a woven fabric. You see the cost there, $65 to $85. It's number 9 there.
And that's the only one I give is a square footage price.
Yeah, all of the buyers were a little bit nervous about providing a hard number at this point, because construction materials are varying so quickly. But I think generally that we're still in the range of the cost estimate that we discussed in the past. The metal was actually still the most expensive, by far than the others.
Okay, so yes, we can, any questions on any of that? I see it's the hot dip, the galvanized steel was an issue. Okay, yes.
I have a comment. I've been a proponent of somewhat of the fabric, and I wasn't having dealt with that. But I will tell you this, the negative I see to that, and I see it not only in the one that we use, but also the one the city uses. If there's a storm approaching, it's taken down, and generally, it's left down until the hurricane season's over.
Right.
That's the negative. You don't take it down and put it back up.
Which is when you need.
So, yeah.
It's just like hurricane shutters.
Yeah.
Leave them up the whole season.
So that's a negative. In fact, when we go out of town, we take ours down and it stays down until November first.
Randy?
Yeah, and my question was kind of along the lines of Gene relating to the takedown and then the reinstallation, which he said,
I couldn't even understand.
Doesn't
I got tired.
You're gonna be doing it, Cheryl.
I would not.
These guys are rolling their eyes.
Who would we have do that?
Raise your hand if you are.
So, okay. No, understood. That's what I thought. So, I mean, that to me, with everything else that's going around, happening when we're doing hurricane prep at the airport is gonna be low priority. I mean, and so, it may be one of those things that say, we just can't get to it. And so, and Gene is spot on. You see, somebody takes something down or change something during hurricane season, and it doesn't go back up until November.
Right.
And so.
And to that point, if I may, Mr. Chair, at Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, we installed a fabric. This was ages ago, but, and part of our hurricane plan at the time was to remove it and reinstall it. And it was such a challenge, that particular structure, because of the way it was designed and installed, that we just said, just leave it up during storm and then we'll take our chances. And I believe, right, that there were instances where there were tears in the fabric and all that. And then that led to, then you had even a worse situation, which is you had a fabric that had a tear in it that was there for the public until you could procure it and get it installed. So that was the
They're also a
challenge.
little more susceptible. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one.
Right,
Yeah,
vandalism,
go ahead, Mel.
yes.
I think this is very interesting. I think what we're seeing, all of us in long-term Floridians, basically, we've worked in commercial, industrial, our own home facilities. I think even though the metal roofs are the most expensive, long-term overall cost of ownership, maintenance, deterioration, you can't beat the solid metal roof. And quite frankly, the first presenter had some very interesting specifications with the Kynar coating, the 8 mil stick, when you consider that on an average automobile, your paint primer stuff is 3 millimeters thick, this 8 mil stick, and powder coated, and G-note, the structural strength of what that guy was. This is me saying, even though the PTFE is pretty cool stuff, and you can see it at Denver Airport and these other places, I think we've discussed in the past wanting something basically maintenance-free, low cost overall, though it may cost more upfront over the number of years it will last and any minor maintenance it may require. That's just my 2 cents.
Gene? Yeah, again, coming back to the fabric, I'm not in favor of removable fabric, but I was very impressed with the last presenter.
Oh, yes.
And their product, and the way they was built.
He's doing it right.
I'm drawing the picture in my mind of how they do it, and
He's doing it right, no one.
yeah, the structure, yeah.
It looks like you make a lot
Well, the thing-
more dynamic shapes out of that stuff.
Yes.
All this pictures.
Denver Airport.
Shape it anyway.
Look at the Palm Beach Discount Mall, it looks like the Denver Airport.
It does, yeah.
Sharon, were you gonna say something?
I just wanted to say that it's, the fabric or that material allows the shape of the concept plan to be executed, within a factory. It's got the ability to form it in a curved shape, which that from a design standpoint, that gives more of a custom look. So I was surprised to feel that way after I researched and talked with them, but I think that's an interesting, from a design standpoint, it gives us that flexibility, which I really personally like.
Well, Sharon, you also said that, in your last comment, that the metal options were hands down the most expensive. And that is, I assume you heard our last presenter say he was looking at 90 to 110K for tensile. So you're saying that should we choose metal, it might last longer. And I was very pro metal going in, but I too was impressed by this last one.
Yes.
That we could expect more than 110,000 if we would go the metal route and certainly, and maybe even the metal route with the laser cut. That to me was most.
Yes. I don't have his numbers, the laser cut, presenter, but when Mary did her presentation, Polygon, they gave me pricing. They actually did it like it was a construction project with footers and everything. But she said since she provided that information to me, the cost has gone up 50%. So that's a pretty big hike, which is concerning to me. So I'd have to see how the ramifications of that.
Sure. Okay, well, our goal, I'll just give you a moment, but our goal is to kind of pick a material. But Bob, you got one more comment before we try to figure out where we're at?
So Sharon, when you're talking to these providers, was there a sense that this was kind of a high visibility, high profile project and made it kind of special? And I don't know, in a way, there might be some kind of negotiation.
Dreaming.
Yeah, there's like some signage or something like, no, I'm just throwing that out there because,
labor is labor.
yeah, but because it's a public space that's got, was there anything there at all?
10 million visitors.
All of the companies that I contacted, said this is a really small project, but a really important project. They felt that it's high profile. Most of them were familiar with the airport, had flown there before, or were familiar with the airport. They were all very enthusiastic about being part of it. They got excited when I sent them filed. So yes, I think it's a little bit unusual for some of them, particularly the last speaker, because they do huge structures. You know, they do some really big projects, and this is obviously not that, but you heard him say that he's still interested in it and being a part of it. I don't know how that would ever equate to dollars and cents. If they're interested in doing it, it's wonderful. And how they might be something or somehow otherwise be involved, I don't know, but yes, they were all very excited about talking about it.
And Sharon, one more, I think, final quick question. Should we determine that the pencil route was where enough vendors out there to make this a competitive bid environment? So it's not like this is the only pencil provider in town, they're way out front, there's nobody second or third. So are there other vendors in that space?
Yeah, there are so many. There are so many, yes, there are quite a few.
Well, my sense is that, what I'm hearing is nobody wants the fabric to take up and down, is that correct, Marty? So we're down to two choices, the metal or the PTFE fabric. Does anybody want to start with a pick, or want to just do it on show of
I
hands?
would ask my question.
Yes.
I know that since we met last month, prices on things have gone up, as indicated here, but what were the prices that you had given us on the metal structures last week? What was the rate?
Let me pull up the cost estimate. I'm going through it right now.
While she's looking that up, one of the things I was impressed with the last one was the thing, Mel, it sounded like you were familiar with it, the one at Port Canaveral that had been there for 30 years. You know, that's impressive.
Water.
They're gonna get it down there.
They've had a few.
Yeah.
They've had a few.
PTFE is a pretty suave material. And the way Gene spoke, the way the guy mounts it, it keeps the water out, he knows his stuff.
Yeah, I got the impression he was like an owner or decision maker or something in the company the way he talked.
Andrew is the president of the company. He's in town, he's actually in the Boca area for a project they have there.
Oh.
So he was in town to oversee the,
Where's that project? Sharon, is this the JM Family Project currently underway?
Yeah.
It's at the JM Family headquarters,
Right at
The campus down
So for a drive-by, correct, in Hillsborough and I-95. And
They call it campus.
correct, and they did a band shell in Miramar, for the city of Miramar, that is really beautiful. And that was how we found this particular product, is looking at the garage in Pompano, the new city of Pompano Beach garage has those, they look like sailboat sailors, so that's that material.
Yep.
And it has some good kind of environmental benefits as well from what we've read, where it doesn't leach and those kinds of things.
Right.
It's interesting product.
No, that really makes that parking garage look better than a parking garage.
It's what it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. So.
and I wanted to clarify, when I talked about PVC pencil, I wasn't familiar with this one. So I was using the structure I designed in St. Augustine with PVC pencil. So I learned a little bit more too about this product, which is very impressive because it starts out, I guess, a little bit off-white and then bleaches a pure white, which, and then lasts. So it sounds like to me, it sounds like a good alternative. So I have the cost up in front of me now that I presented when I was there last month. The range that on the fabric structure, the range was 50 to 60,000.
On the steel?
So now I have to go.
Does that include this PTFE fabric?
No.
That's 100. That's
No, that was the fabric like that you take down and put back up.
Okay.
So I was pretty spot on coincidentally on the pencil shade structure, I had 90 to 112,500. And that was what he basically.
And just,
And
that
that was-
was on the steel.
That was it.
Oh, that was steel?
No,
That was
No, that
PTSD.
was
Oh,
the steel, the 100 to 125.
But that's the one
False
where
starts.
the cost is escalated with 50%.
That's the one that the price has gone up. And, I just want, something else I want to point out to you is the numbers I just gave you are for the structure. So the footers are an additional 45 to 50,000 and 45 to 50,000 for both of those structures. So it sounds like it's 110,000, but that's not with the footers. So, I can't remember if Andrew said that was, he said that was turnkey, didn't he? Did he say that?
Yes.
Oh. And the estimate for the, because
we are, just to be clear, we're deciding on a vendor. I mean, I like the tinsel PVC, I would support that.
So would I.
Show of hands, I got
Just to be
three.
clear, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could, just to be clear, because there are two types of tinsel powders. There's the
PTFE.
and the PTFE, and I think the one that was being recommended was the PTFE. I think that was.
Yeah, the last presented.
Right.
That you don't take down.
Not the PVC, but the PT.
Yeah, the
and the
PTFE.
More
fiberglass.
expensive
The good, the good stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
You haven't seen your hand or Bob, you're, everybody, it looks like you have this for.
Okay.
We are made in the
Okay.
Saving that.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Be careful what we ask for next time around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What time is breakfast, Claire?
Yeah.
Next up, we have our corporate identity and community engagement program update, and we have with us Vanessa Chen, we all know, to make a quarterly report on our program. Vanessa, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Move the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vanessa Chen, Community Engagement Specialist. I will be giving a brief update regarding our accomplishments in the past quarter. And here are some highlights for the quarter. First is our website analytics. In the previous quarter, the visitor traffic with new users and reoccurring users has gone up significantly. The two spikes are attributed to marketing for the virtual pilot meeting, which was received well by our users, and the other reason is unknown. Next is our social media analytics. Last quarter, we introduced Instagram and Twitter, and now we are seeing the effects of leveling from attracting new users. This is a visual continuation of the previous slide. Out of the 162 posts from Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, these 3 posts received the highest engagements.
Is that the best picture you can come up with?
Thought you looked familiar.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take off my glasses.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Next is the volunteering and donating we did for Boca Helping Hands. April was National Volunteer Month, and we partnered with Atlantic Aviation, Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott, Reliable Jet Maintenance, and Signature Flight Support to collect and donate for Boca Helping Hands. We also volunteered by packing groceries, which also included BRAA and boomers. We did a press release which was received well. Next is BRAA. As some of you know, we donated our traditional rotating beacon to the BRAA students. They're excited to come pick up the beacon, and they are going to mount it in their courtyard, of their academy. Next is our airport management outreach. Just to highlight a few of our community outreach endeavors. Airport management gave recently appointed council member Drucker a tour of the airport. Airport management attended the unveiling of the Army Airfield historical marker at FAU, and we attended the partnering between BOCA Office of Economic Development and Atlantic Aviation with their marketing initiative. Lastly, coming soon. Today you had the opportunity to meet 2 of the 3 George Snow Scholars presentations. Our fourth with Spirit of Giving will take place in July with a volunteering opportunity as well. If you are interested in participating by dropping off school supplies before July 21st, which is actually our next board meeting. And that concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Good job, Vanessa. I've been seeing a lot of good stuff online, and the graphics and so forth that you're creating just look magnificent. So, good job.
And I like that picture of Cheryl. Okay, we just got a couple more things here. First, always we go around the board, all the members of the board, if you have any comments or questions, anything we didn't get a chance to cover, any new agenda items that anybody has, anybody got anything, looking around. Seeing none, we'll move forward. Public comment, are there any public comments?
No.
I think we lost it. There better not
Oh,
be.
we have dog, thank you.
To the end. Let's do it.
To the last dog, guys.
Good choice on that.
Yes. And Claire, any other business? Any other business to be brought forward? Any staff or board? Seeing none. The next meeting is scheduled for July 21st, 2021. As Vanessa just said, at 6 p.m. right here in the conference room at the BOCA Administrative Meeting. So with that, if no other issues.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion accepted. Good job.
Good job.
Are you setting the example for lengthy meetings?
Very thorough. No, right. I learned a lot.
Well, we've got YouTube. Long way to go. We all.
And that's been around 30 years too.
Yeah.
And you know, just not getting planes, we get a lot of all this stuff. Yeah. No, I just, and the fact that
And sit down here.
but I still think we work. Keep that. I mean,
We're trying to break Mitch's record for long meetings.
We should.
There.
Like we got